everything wants you when you want nothing. And I don't mean in some mystical, the universe rewards you when you stop caring way. I mean psychologically, socially, romantically. The second you stop auditioning for approval, your entire experience of other people changes. Suddenly, the text you were checking your phone for, you don't even care if it comes. The opportunity you were trying so hard to convince yourself you needed, you're looking at it like, are you actually good enough for me? And that shift is incredibly attractive because your attention is no longer being handed out like free samples at Costco. You become selective with it. I think this is one of the strangest parts of becoming genuinely secure. You start realizing how much of what you called wanting was actually wanting to be chosen. You didn't necessarily want him. You wanted him to want you. You didn't necessarily want that job. You wanted the validation of getting it. You didn't even necessarily want to be included in that group. You wanted proof that you belonged. And once you separate the two, your standards get very, very interesting, because now you're asking a completely different question. Not, how do I get them to pick me? But, do I even like what they're offering? That question will save you so much time. There's also a psychological reason people seem to notice you more when you're no longer chasing their attention. When someone isn't desperately seeking reassurance, they tend to behave with more autonomy. They're less reactive, less performative, and more willing to tolerate uncertainty. In other words, they don't constantly adjust themselves to get a particular response. And that creates a very different social signal. This person has a life that doesn't collapse if I say no. That's compelling. Not because you're playing hard to get, please, we are too grown for elaborate mating strategies, but because you're actually hard to derail. There's a huge difference. Playing unavailable is still being obsessed with someone's reaction. Being genuinely unavailable to nonsense means your attention has somewhere better to go. And honestly, this is where I think women sometimes misunderstand detachment. Detachment isn't becoming cold. It's becoming specific. You can be warm and still have standards. You can adore someone and still leave if the relationship doesn't work for you. You can want an opportunity and still decide the conditions aren't acceptable. You can be disappointed without turning that disappointment into a referendum on your worth. You don't spiral, you don't chase closure from people who clearly aren't offering it, and you don't suddenly decide you need to become prettier, cooler, quieter, or easier to keep someone interested. That last one is everything, because when you don't need something to validate you, you can finally evaluate it clearly. Rejection becomes information. A slow reply is a slow reply. A closed door is a closed door. You don't have to write a 14-page psychological dissertation about what it means about you. And here's the really funny part. Once you're okay with losing something, you negotiate better. You speak more honestly. You stop over-explaining. You stop accepting crumbs because you're afraid there won't be another meal. You can say, no, that doesn't work for me, and actually mean it. That's power, not the performative kind where you're trying to look untouchable, but the quiet kind where you know you'll be okay either way. So yes, everything seems to want you when you want nothing, but the real goal isn't to become so detached that nobody can affect you. It's to become so rooted in yourself that being wanted is a lovely addition, not a requirement. Because once your life already feels full, attention feels different. Compliments are fun, opportunities are exciting, love is beautiful, but none of them gets to become your oxygen. And that is when you become ridiculously attractive, not because you're withholding yourself, but because you're no longer abandoning yourself to be chosen. Love you no matter what.